1998. And this year has just been amazing. I don't think we've ever had a more supportive legislature in the 20 years that I've been working on state legislative issues around the environment. And neither have we seen so many significant pieces of legislation pass. And you know, what we can really celebrate is that a lot of these bills passed because of all the great work that all of us did here in Spokane and across the state to put pressure on candidates and to put pressure on then legislators to follow through on their commitments around climate and a clean and healthy environment. It took all of us to get here today. So let's first just start with a round of applause for just all the amazing work and all the great stuff that we were able to do. And thank you. Thank you for all that you have done to make this happen, and we're going to do a little bit more recognition in a little bit. But one thing that we can also celebrate is the fossil fuel industry is not happy at all right now with the legislative outcome, right? So, you know, we should definitely celebrate that. Because after they spent a record amount of money defeating 1631 in this last election cycle, it was nice to hand the defeat back to them in the legislative session instead. So that was a nice rebound that we had there. And they're not happy because our legislators voted for aggressive action, plotting a course for fossil fuel and carbon reductions in every major sector of our economy, and did so with the attention to the rights of working people and the impact that global warming has on most vulnerable communities. So some highlights, we're going to start with 100% clean, and then we're going to have a couple of people also share some other highlights of legislation as well. So we will now have 100% clean electricity in Washington State by 2045. Yeah. And Washington State is the first state in the Northwest and the 4th state in the country to enact a legally required phase out of carbon pollution in our electricity. And the policy that our legislature passed is by far and away the strongest in the country. So it targets full decarbonation of our electrical grid by 2045, and then it also will provide for carbon-free electricity by 2030, which is a huge benefit. But that's not all. The bill also offers a significant expansion of low-income energy assistance. It requires our utilities to consider equity impacts as they build systems and infrastructure so that poor people and communities of color aren't disproportionately bearing the brunt of our pollution and negative environmental impacts. It also incorporates the nation's highest social cost of carbon into utility plans, which is a huge deal to make them actually fully internalize the cost of their energy generation choices. And for the first time predicates tax incentives on job quality criteria. So this bill does a lot for the environment and does a lot for social justice and also for economic inequality as well. And this groundbreaking policy sets precedents for further improvements both here and in other states. So, a huge bill, a huge victory, and thank you all for everything you did on that front. In addition to passing 100% clean, we will now also clean up our built environment further as well, as buildings represent about a quarter of Washington's emissions, and the total continues to climb. And so the Clean Buildings for Washington Act is the first state law to require retrofits of existing commercial buildings, the largest of which are significant energy hogs. You can kind of think of those big box stores that have no insulation, right? And subjects natural gas utilities to stronger efficiency standards, including planning with the same social cost of carbon incorporated into the 100% clean electricity policy. And so that was another really significant bill. And then Rebecca was going to talk about a couple of others, and I think Breean was also going to talk about a really significant one for Spokane.
Thank you everybody here who helped get this legislation passed, all of these bills passed. How about everybody, if you went to Olympia this year, would you raise your hand? Yeah, thank you. You can just keep your hands up. If you donated money to help someone else get to Olympia, you can raise your hand. Thank you so much. If you went to a town hall and told your legislators or showed up with your sign to talk about clean energy and the climate crisis or town halls, and if you were like me or in the sixth, then you had to do your telephone town hall instead of a real town hall, you can raise your hand for that one too, because that's important too. People wrote letters to the editor, who sent a letter, either an email or a letter or a phone call, right? We had thousands of letters across the state that were supporting this clean energy legislation. So that's what grassroots can do, is actual constituents talking to those legislators saying, this is what's important to us, we need this to be done. So thank you, give yourselves, we already have, let's clap again. And we got some young people, we got the youth, Amy drove teenagers to Olympia, and we had a second group who went to Youth Climate Lobby Day on the very day that the House passed this clean energy legislation. So that was really fantastic to see those young people. And I am instructed to let you know that there is going to be another youth climate strike this Friday. So May 3rd. So it's national and in other nations, and this is part of the Greta Thunberg's work. And they're meeting from 10:30 to 11 at the tribal gathering place Friday morning. It will be youth-led, but adult support is greatly appreciated if you can show up for that on Friday morning. And they may head into City Hall to lobby and talk about their concerns after that. So let me know if you want the contact information for the youth climate strike at 10:30 on this Friday at the tribal gathering place right outside Spokane City Hall. So they are on it. I'm so excited to see all that youth energy getting going. It's their future that's going to be the most impacted. So the budget, Laura and I were just saying, we haven't even looked at the budget, but they did say there's $160 million for electric vehicle incentives. It's the largest investment in clean energy transportation in Washington state history. So that's another huge one. Jim talked about a lot. Solar Fairness Act passed, so if you're ready to put solar on your house, talk to David. Appliance efficiency was passed. We banned hydrofluorocarbons for Washington state, so that is huge. 17,000 times the impact of carbon dioxide. So they already were nationally regulated, but now Washington is going to say, you just can't have them here. The oil spill transfer for the sound for vessel traffic also passed. And we have our very own oil safety rail transportation bill also passed. So it's a suite of climate bills, and it all happened because people cared enough to press this issue. So, thank you. And our council member, Breean Beggs, will tell us how important this rail transportation safety bill is.
Yes, so what my new mantra that I'm trotting out there for branding for Spokane is that when Spokane leads, Washington State follows. And that is, this is no better example.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Passed 100% renewable energy electricity by 2045. We, of course, passed it for 2030. We're just a little ahead of that. We, among all the places in the state, reached out and reached an agreement with our utility to actually help us do that. That was here, this group, doing that. And on oil train volatility, we did an initiative a couple years ago, and we knew the odds were long, but we kept the conversation going long enough, and we proved the legal theory that Congress actually delegated to states and local areas safety regulation authority. And we used that on the Bakken oil, which, as you know, has a very high volatility. Whenever they derail, they explode and burn up wherever they are. And Spokane, with its elevated railways, is particularly dangerous. We preached that gospel, and we got outspent, I think, $250,000 to $6,000, and lost in the city. But this year, thanks to Senator Billig and a lot of other great people and great analysis that we brought to that, We changed that. Now we're the first state in the nation to set a volatility level of 9 pounds per square inch. First in the nation to do that. And somehow the fossil fuel industry they don't quite understand what happened, but that passed in the legislature and nobody thought it would. And that is now the standard in the nation. It's delayed as far as when it comes into effect. The first thing is no new facilities can take that kind of oil. There's a couple of years on the other ones. But I fully expect that now that that is set, other states will follow suit, and then they'll get a national rule as well. So that was something
Yeah.
Thanks for turning out, not just for celebration nights like this, but all the hard work along the way. You made a huge difference for us in City Council. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Breean, and thank you for all your leadership on that front. Breean has really been leading the charge on oil train safety in the state for several years, and we're really lucky to have him on our city council. And even more exciting, he's running for city council president. So if you want to see another environmental champion in the city council, please consider supporting his campaign. Fuse early endorsed him a month and a half ago, and so we're very excited for him to be playing a bigger leadership role in our city. The other thing I wanted to mention is the Environmental Lobby Day this year was the biggest environmental lobby day in history, with over 500 people there, and we had the largest contingent of people from Spokane at the lobby day, with over 27 people who spent 2 or 3 days to go to Olympia in the winter time and lobby our legislators around all of these environmental bills. And so you saw the number of hands of folks who are here that went, and that was not even everyone who came over. And that was a huge deal and made a huge impression on our legislators and really helped to drive this forward. And it's so interesting now how Spokane for a long time, like in kind of legislative strategy world, was never really a target. But now we actually have 3 of the most powerful legislators from the same district. So we have the most powerful contingent of legislators in the whole state from Spokane, because we have the Senate Majority Leader, we have the Ways and Means Chair of the House who writes the budget, and we have the Majority Whip who counts all the votes in the House as well. And what's amazing about our 3 legislators is they are with us on these issues. They're all strong champions, and they work really well together. They're probably the best coordinated team of legislators in the state. So they split things up, they talk all the time, and they develop strategies, and it's how we're able to get so many amazing things done in Olympia for Eastern Washington and the whole entire state. And they really led on many of these issues, both on the environment and a lot of other economic and social justice issues. So if you haven't taken the time to thank Representative Riccielli, Senator Billig, and Representative Ormsby, they are really a treasure of Spokane, and they're really have been critical in all of these issues. And so please do take the time to thank them for all the hard work that they do. They kind of put in a lot more time than they're required to, and they really do an excellent job. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. So wanted to take just a couple minutes to talk about kind of what's next on climate and the environment going forward, so you all can think about ways to get involved. So the first thing that's next is that we have an election season. And so we have the mayor's office, the city council president, 3 city council seats, as well as school board, all up for election this year. And that's actually the single biggest thing that we can do to make an improvement on the environment, because that amazing 2030 bill or ordinance that got passed isn't being implemented. The mayor refused to implement a law that the city council passed, even though that's his job. And he's refused to implement all kinds of things on immigration as well. And so he's really been an obstacle to implementing a lot of the good things that the city council has done. So the opportunity to get an environmental champion and a progressive champion into the mayor's office for the first time in 8 years to control the second largest city budget in the state is a huge deal. And to have the city council willing to be bold and out front and pass the kind of solutions that we need to protect our planet is critical. So that's a huge thing that's coming up. We are so lucky to have a lot of great candidates, so I really encourage folks to get to know who's running for office and to do everything you can to support them. And then the second thing is that we got 100% clean electricity passed, and now we need to tackle a couple of other big sectors of our global warming pollution. So there's a great bill, which there's a background piece on around clean fuel. So the transportation sector is the largest source of global warming emissions, and obviously it's where the oil industry is heavily invested. And they were able to kill the Clean Fuel Standards bill this year in the legislature. So we have another chance next year. We got to keep pushing to adopt clean fuel standards to reduce our carbon pollution from transportation. There were a lot of good things done on the transportation front that were mentioned, but this is a very significant piece of legislation. So tackling transportation is one big area. And the other thing that I want to put on people's radar is the electric utilities were covered under the 100% clean bill, but natural gas wasn't. And it's not natural gas that's coming into our homes anymore, it's fracked gas. About 80% of all the gas that we use is actually from fracking. And fracked gas is as dirty as coal. So we have to address fracked gas in order to solve this climate crisis. And there were some pieces that will help with that, that were part of the clean electricity bill, but it doesn't really touch the natural gas utility. And so there's going to be a lot of work to be done to really educate people that it's fracked gas, it's not natural, it's not a clean transition fuel, it's as dirty as coal, and we need to get out of it as quickly as we can. And so I think that will be another campaign that will start to ramp up. And so we'll just keep people in the loop around that going forward. If you haven't signed in and you want to join the action alert list with 350 and Fuse, please do sign in, because that's a great way to stay up to date about what's happening both locally and on the state level. And so those are a couple of the kind of next steps that we had, and that's kind of what we have for a program, unless folks have any other questions or comments that you have for us before we let you get back to eating good food and drinking good beer. All right, well, thank you all. One more round of applause. Thank you for all that you did. This session, we have a lot to celebrate.